My brother is not a bad person. He has a good heart. It's just... he can't help himself. And everyone's left picking up the pieces.
Better Call Saul is a show about many things. Gus's revenge, Mike's code of honour, Nacho's fight for freedom, the tragedy of Howard, Kim's moral decline, the rise of Saul Goodman. But for me, the beating heart of the story has always been the relationship between Jimmy and Chuck. Specifically the question, was Chuck right about Jimmy all along? And here's the thing, most people hate Chuck, not because he's entirely wrong about Jimmy, but because of the way he treats him. Chuck is cold, condescending, and often cruel. He hides behind legal procedure while committing personal betrayals. He weaponizes his intelligence to humiliate Jimmy, always acting as if he's above petty emotion while constantly driven by it himself. We sympathize with Jimmy because we see how much he craves Chuck's approval, and how painful it is to realize your own brother not only doubts you, but actively works against you. Chuck doesn't just criticize Jimmy's choices, he orchestrates elaborate schemes to sabotage him, using Howard, the Bar Association, and legal loopholes as tools of personal revenge. And it annoys us even more because Chuck cloaks his actions in self-righteousness. He calls it protecting the law when really it's about control, ego, and his own inability to accept the brother he has. Chuck feared that Jimmy would corrupt the legal world he held so sacred, which is respectable. But let's be honest, it was never just about the law. It was largely about his own professional jealousy. Deep down, he knew how good Jimmy was at bending people to his will, and in a way, Chuck was right. I mean, Jimmy did cut corners. He forged documents, manipulated clients, lied to judges. But Chuck's biggest mistake was believing himself to be the morally superior person. He conspired behind the scenes to sabotage Jimmy's career, all while clinging to the idea that because it was technically legal, it wasn't wrong. And the real tragedy is that Chuck and Jimmy were basically mirror images, both brilliant, both ruthless when backed into a corner, and both capable of extraordinary deceit. Chuck believed the law was the highest moral authority, but failed to grasp that legality and morality aren't exactly the same thing. And Jimmy, for all his cons, would often bend the rules, but for what he saw as just causes. He had the attitude of, well, if it's helping people, and I can get away with it, then what's the problem? Like sabotaging Mesa Verde to get Kim the client she earned. Technically a crime, but morally understandable.
I don't want to hurt your feelings. But the truth is, you've never mattered all that much to me.
See, this isn't true. Chuck, despite everything, did care about Jimmy. But I think his fatal flaw was putting his love for the law above the love for his own brother. And Jimmy's was being too proud, too hurt to ever fully understand Chuck's betrayals. In another life, if either of them could have admitted how alike they actually were, maybe things could have ended differently, but neither was willing, and so they burned each other down. Chuck was right about Jimmy in many ways, but his blind spot was his own hypocrisy. The tragedy is that they were more alike than they could ever admit. And Jimmy did become everything Chuck feared, but in my opinion, it was Chuck's cruelty that pushed Jimmy down that exact path, eventually bringing Kim along in the process with bitterness and resentment towards Howard and HHM. He failed to ever admit how capable he was of the same kind of manipulation and deceit he protested. And what makes Better Call Saul so fascinating is that even its team of writers don't ever pretend to have a final answer. In their Better Call Saul Insider podcast, they constantly go back and forth on who was right and wrong, and every single writer has a different way of looking at it.
Jimmy, this could really hurt you. If they find out, if you get caught.
They're never gonna find out.
Seriously, you sound like every dumb criminal out there. If you keep this up, they will find out.
Yeah, he's able to see it through her eyes and see what's wrong with it, but
everybody isn't always right, so she doesn't own the truth.
True, but she is right. I mean, do you think that
She's
he
right, but
knows?
she's not right. I mean, the thing is, in life, and maybe I'm just too sympathetic to the character because I play him, I relate to that side of him.
Yeah.
The side of him that says, well, fuck it. Who cares if I'm wrong? This is fun.
Typically, when he does something like this, he's doing it to help someone else.
Yeah.
Which does not necessarily make a great excuse for it, but it's kind of an ends justify the means kind of thing, which can lead you down to some very dark paths.
I think that he understands what he did is not necessarily illegal, but I think he knows he can game the system. And I think, Kim is a person who's very controlled, like these are the rules and this is how you follow the rules. And Jimmy's more like, well, you can bend those and not necessarily get caught. And as long as you're not getting caught and you're doing it kind of for the right reasons, then why not take advantage of that? Like he sees sort of the system and is able to work deeper within that system, whereas she sees the system and goes, these are my parameters, and I must work within these parameters.
And that's what makes the writing in this show feel so alive, because the characters are. We can feel every single decision they make always has a lasting ripple effect. So everything they do matters. There's no official interpretation or moral of the story neatly spelled out. And that's why this show sticks with us so much, because just like in real life, there never really is a clean answer, only consequences to the choices we make.